Here we go.
Hello and welcome to Bounding Into Comics. My name is John Trent. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief at Bounding Into Comics. Today I got a story about the latest Batman comic from DC Comics that shows Batman fleeing the scene of an Antifa or Black Lives Matter style riot. It's an absolute disgrace what they are doing to Batman in this comic. There's so many issues with this comic. It's bad writing, it's a degradation of the character, and so much more. So let's get to this. I wrote this article earlier today. As you can see here, it's titled Batman Flees Antifa and Black Lives Matter Style Riots in New Comic. These places all have insurance, not my job to protect their profit margins. So to start off, DC Comics continues to circle not only the creative drain, but the moral drain as well, with their latest Batman comic, Batman Fortress #1, which sees Batman flee from an Antifa and Black Lives Matter style riot. And that is indeed what he does, as we'll get to. So the comic, written by Gary Whitta, I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing his name, but it has artwork from The Boys' Derek Robertson, and it sees Batman investigating an alien interference that causes global blackouts. As Batman attempts to figure out what is the cause of the blackouts, he is also called on to protect Gotham City after the entirety of the prisoners in Arkham Asylum are unleashed upon the innocent citizens. So basically the blackouts short out like the electric locks on the asylum, and all the prisoners escape. Seen it before, so that's not a big deal. But anyways, Batman's first stop is to a rooftop overlooking an electronics store that is being looted, with neighboring buildings, some of them appearing to be apartments, being set on fire. The rioters are even shown waving blunt objects in the air, indicating they're probably using them against their fellow citizens, or maybe the storefront. It's unclear. Batman rationalizes that he shouldn't put a stop to the rioters because there are more than likely bigger fish to catch out in Gotham City, despite having no knowledge of where these big fish might be, given the power and communication blackouts. And that's something that we will go back to later in this article, and I'll talk to you here in this video about. But let's get to the page in question. As you can see here, you can see Batman is literally just overlooking this riot. He flies, he goes to this rooftop. People are looting what looks to be an electronics store like Best Buy. You see they got like a UHD TV in their hands. Here's the woman shouting angrily with a blunt object in their hands. Then get another angle. Building is on fire. Who knows? It's unclear what building this is. Could be an apartment building. You see apartment buildings here. It's unclear if this piece is part of the electronics store or not. It looks like it's separated. There is a partition here. Who knows what kind of building that is. It does look like a storefront. Could be an apartment building. A lot of times in these cities now, they have businesses underneath and then apartments above them. So it's unclear if there are apartments above them. That does look like the case here. If we look back here, we see clearly looks like apartment buildings. So one would assume that there are tenants living there. But let's read what the actual Batman's interior monologue is, and why he rationalizes why he needs to go just leave these criminals to continue committing crime and destroying the city, and potentially putting lots of people and their lives at risk. So this is what Ritter writes for Batman's interior monologue. He says, "Haven't seen a night like this in a while. Last time it was this bad was that damn fear gas in the water supply. Only so much I can do. Need to prioritize. Hunt the big fish. Protect the little fish. These places all have insurance. Not my job to protect their profit margins. My father's day, the American dream used to mean something. An honest wage for honest work. Food on the table. Liberty and justice for all. Now it's an illusion, a carrot on a stick, attainable by a few, dangled just out of reach for everyone else. A bigger TV, a faster car, shiny objects to keep the masses distracted while the world burns. You want to blame them for grabbing the carrot when the lights go out? Go ahead, but don't look to me to stop them. That's not why I do this." So, I mean, that's pretty much Batman just endorsing rioting, and he's not going to stop people from rioting because he's lecturing you on the American dream now, which is the complete opposite of what Batman would actually do if he wasn't being written by Gary Whitta, who appears to have his own axe to grind and is using Batman to do it. So let's provide a little bit more context on it. While that panel or that page is absolutely abhorrent, we do see Batman taking on some of the quote-unquote bigger fish in the comic. So while Batman leaves these looters and rioters to burn down the city, he does randomly track down a number of Joker thugs who are threatening to kill an innocent family. He also randomly shows up at Gotham Harbor and stops Penguin from drowning a blonde woman. You can see Batman here stopping Penguin. From there, he also stops Joker, who has hijacked a school bus in the middle of the night. He stands directly in front of Joker, who's driving the bus on a bridge as Joker seeks to ram him. As Joker closes in, Batman deploys a giant flash that blinds Joker and sends him careening the bus nearly off the bridge, putting the children's lives in danger. So Batman's actually putting these kids' lives in danger by trying to stop Joker here. And it just kind of is like, I think Batman would have figured out a better way to get Joker out of the bus and kind of put a stop to him without putting all of these kids' lives in danger, where the bus could potentially go over the bridge and like have them all drown. Not very smart of Batman. But he's not making a lot of smart choices at all in this comic. But anyways, Joker does go flying through the windshield, and then he ends up like kind of dangling here on the bumper. And while the children are saved, Joker dangles from the bumper of the bus, about to fall into the water below. Batman grudgingly rescues him, rationalizing that if he let Joker fall, he wouldn't be able to explain his actions to the children who are watching him. So I kind of had this like witty, sarcastic remark here. It's unfortunate there weren't any children watching him allow the electronics store and the neighboring apartments, more than likely filled with innocent citizens, get burned to the ground, because he probably might have actually done something if they were kids watching him. And he literally says, "How do I explain it to them?" And that's why he saves Joker. Maybe he would have saved those other people in those apartment buildings, potential employees that are in the electronics store, if there were actually some people watching him. Again, pathetic rationalization from Batman, total degradation of his character. Nevertheless, Batman ends his night by heading to Crime Alley, where he beats up a criminal who appears to have shot and killed a couple and has begun to loot their bodies, a clear homage to his own parents being shot and killed there. So let's kind of get into Batman's rationalization. While prioritizing certain crimes over another is practical, the way the story actually plays out, the rationale doesn't make any sense. Batman has no idea where these big fish are because of the power and communications blackouts. He might have one of his satellites up and operational, but he tasks Alfred with using it to scan for extraterrestrial activity because he's trying to figure out what's actually causing the blackouts, which are global. He does offer Jim Gordon a way to counteract interference disrupting the communications, but he makes it clear he will be using it to contact the GCPD so they can bring in the criminals captured. It's unclear that any of his kind of city cameras or anything like that are actually operational that would allow him to maybe locate these criminals. None of that's ever kind of explained in the comic. You just have to suspend your disbelief. But I think Witta makes it very clear that Batman chooses to ignore this mob in favor of seeking out other possible crimes. Instead of stepping in and stopping the crime that he sees happening in front of him, he chooses to ignore it in the hopes he will find other more horrific crimes being committed. On top of that, he actually sits and ponders the crimes being committed and justifies ignoring them when he could have actually been putting a stop to them. So the way Witta writes Batman is that Batman is justifying ignoring this crime that's right there in front of him in favor of maybe hoping to find some other crime that's out there. That is not how Batman would operate. He would deal with the crime in front of him. He wouldn't be trying to just maybe go out and find other more dangerous crimes unless he knew where they were being committed, which I don't think he does. The comic does not make it clear that he knows where all of these crimes are committed, and he's just kind of leaping from different areas of the city throughout, which makes absolutely no sense. And then to like kind of top off that, again, as I said here, he just kind of, you get this whole page of him rationalizing why he's not getting involved when he could have been getting involved. Instead, he just decides to go off and run away, where he could have been like right there stopping these people, figuring out a way to stop them. The comic also appears to depict the crimes being committed by the Antifa and Black Lives Matter mob as worse, or could be argued to be worse than the crimes committed by Joker and Penguin. The mob isn't just looting an electronics store. As I said, it appears to be burning down apartment buildings too. It's also unclear if there's any staff in the building that have already been brutalized by the mob. Penguin is attempting to murder one woman, and Joker has a bus full of kids. How many women and kids are in these apartment buildings that the mob is burning down? Probably more than was on the bus, and and definitely more than one woman that Penguin is trying to murder. So the idea of him trying to claim that stopping Penguin and Joker are the big fish doesn't make any sense when this mob actually might be the actual bigger fish that he needs to put a stop to. Not only can you look at Batman's rationalization for ignoring the crime, but his decision not to put a stop to these criminals also shows that he's a hypocrite. The beginning of the book actually opens with Bruce Wayne and Alfred beating down a bunch of thieves who attempt to loot his manor, believing that he's not home. If Batman actually believes the rationalization that Witta gives him in his interior dialogue or monologue, why isn't he allowing these thieves to loot his home? After all, Bruce Wayne surely has insurance, right? Here you can see him beating up these thieves that were trying to steal the pearls that his mom owned. Nevertheless, I think the biggest crime of the book is the fact that Batman didn't find a way to not only stop the crimes being committed by the Antifa and Black Lives Matter style mobs, but also round up Joker, Penguin, and other criminals attempting to take advantage of the blackouts in Gotham City. Batman's smart enough to figure out how to put a stop to the mob and move on to the next criminals. Instead, Witta and Robertson sacrificed Batman's character in favor of lecturing readers about the American dream and trying to paint a violent, angry mob as sympathetic. And I can only conclude that this is the latest piece of evidence that DC Comics no longer actually tells stories about heroes and then go out of their way to disrespect their own characters. And that's exactly what DC Comics is doing now as a company. They don't care about their characters. They don't care about telling heroic stories. Instead, they're more worried about lecturing you about the American dream and trying to make you feel sympathetic about an angry, violent mob looting and burning down the entire city. Let me know what you think about this latest Batman Fortress comic. Leave a comment below. My name is John Trent, and you've been watching Bounding into Comics.